Welcome to a new episode of our podcast, Lead the Future, Change the Conversation, an unedited, honest conversation to create the future. I'm Arjan Visser, your host and futurist, and today I chat with my dear friend Shane Pope, that you hopefully remember from our previous podcast we did together. And we talk about self-leadership, future, and peers. Shane is the director of an international business at ARMATEC, an emerging voice for leaders who wants to integrate life into business to make it personal again. Shane, thank you for being with us in our podcast.
It's a pleasure to be with you again. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah, let's make it less easy than last time.
Less easy, okay.
You know, you've got to know this podcast as the platform for not feeling too comfortable.
Absolutely.
And I want to actually just drop the question, how do you balance your vision, your future perspective with your current reality, your present reality? How do you balance that as a leader?
It's a good question. Arjan. And I think my first response to that would be, do we really need to balance these two things? Are they, because if I think about that for a moment, that sort of presupposes that there's a tension between these two things, between my current reality, my present reality, and my future identity, where I'm going. Your question presupposes there's a tension between the two things that we have to somehow resolve or hold in balance or weigh one up against the other and choose one over the other at any given moment. And yeah, so I'm going to fire that back at you and say, well, is that really a fair presupposition? Is that what we're really talking about? Do we actually need to balance these two things?
Yeah, fair question. I would nearly say it really depends on a maturity level. In general, we tend to balance things when we see a tension, and we see the tension based on that's impossible that there is a synergy between the two. When we go to a higher level, strategic level or maturity level, then we start to see that the tension actually reveals a paradox based on our current understanding, which means there is an invitation to find the synergy on a deeper level of thought or a higher perspective. And maybe that the invitation continues even and goes to that there is a oneness to be found between the two.
Yes, exactly. And I think that's, to me, that's a very exciting and a very hopeful idea, because I don't know about you, but for me personally, I do feel the tension almost every day. I have clients in my business that need something from me now. There's a problem to solve or there's an issue to deal with. And that does feel at times in tension with, okay, is this where I'm going? Is this where my business is going? And do I put my attention and my focus on this, or do I put my attention and my focus on that? And it can, I do, just being honest, I do feel that tension. What you're saying is interesting to me and hopeful that there's another level of maturity, another level of authority, I guess, that I can perhaps step into that brings those two things together, that those two things work in synergy, that one of them, that they both sort of support each other, feed off each other.
Yeah. Well, it's easy to talk about the third person, of course. So if our client, as the third person in this conversation, aims to get his pain resolved, then it becomes that it is his reality. and it is current, and it is so it is seen as real. If our client wants to be prepared for tomorrow, focus on what's not yet here, the emerging future, like those kind of concepts, then his current pain is not reality, but is a perception of what seems to be real, which is all to do with the limited insight based on today or gained yesterday. And they are actually looking for a higher perspective. Like with the paradox, the invitation to go to deeper thought, meaning, knowledge, or maybe better word, knowing, which is not just knowledge. It's about sensing, it's about feeling, it's about imagination. If all those things are there as well, but that means it's more like a strategic issue than it is an operational need to be solved today issue, because then it's actually a problem, and problems needs to be out of the way, like they're the obstacles to grow into that future.
Yeah, that's true. And I think we're now getting into leadership, aren't we? That with when we're working with our clients, when we're serving and providing value to our clients, are we just working to solve their immediate problems that they see, framed in their current context, or are we trying to lead them somewhere new? And if we're trying to lead them somewhere new, then we have to have that future reality, that future vision pretty clear in front of us, so that we can lead them into a new future as well, and take them somewhere that they perhaps haven't seen before or don't know. To me, that there's something in there about being a leader versus being just a current problem solver. And of course, the current problems are the ones that hurt the most right now. They're the ones that cause that sort of acute, immediate pain. But I think it's those future potential problems that may not be seen by our clients yet. But we need to spend time, I think, looking for those and seeing where the future might go, both for ourselves and our businesses, and for them and their businesses, so that we can truly act as a leader in their lives and help them move from now to there.
Would that create for you that personal development, self-leadership, to get your perspective broader? I skip on purpose the word clear, because we know, you and I, that if we have clarity about our future perspective, we actually have reduced it to something that's not so much future, but actually is based on, we nearly say, that we could fulfill based on our resume yesterday. So if we broaden our perspective, get our hope from it, get the input we need to define new actions, and that helps our clients to grow, to move forward, to navigate. And at the same time, the current obstacles need to be solved, or at least need to be moved out of the way. That could be by solution. It could also by that we now have actually insight that they're actually not relevant to invest in. But that takes away the balancing act. And I tend to think of a word like, is the rhythm? Like, how do you imagine that? What would be I would nearly talk ideal perspective of that both work together, while we not see yet how. But is that a rhythm?
It's a nice way to think about it, actually, because you're right. We need to keep. I think we need to keep these things in mind. That it's like we were talking about before we jumped on. There's a potential, I guess, a tendency to get so focused on one aspect that we lose focus on the other. I get so focused on solving this immediate pain point that I lose the focus on the future of my business and my clients' business. I think there's a very real risk of that happening if I'm not careful. I think there's also a risk of the opposite as well, that we can be so focused on a future vision, we get disconnected from what's happening today, and then we stumble along the way because we're not taking care of business today. And so I think it goes back to me what you were saying earlier about a developing maturity, a developing awareness, a developing perception, that we can perhaps change our perception of what's happening today in terms of, I just see this immediate problem that I need to fix. Well, can we reframe that perception? Okay, well, how does this situation provide a stepping stone to my future, my perceived future that I see, both for me and for my client? Or does it not? And so if it doesn't, then what do we do? Do we solve it now so that it's fixed? Do we, as you say, identify, actually it's irrelevant, and we can put it to the side. We don't have to actually deal with that. It's a distraction now because we see where we're going, and whatever this thing is, it's not a part of that future. So I think there's a lot of work to be done in us as leaders in how we see current things that we're dealing with, how we see our future, how we see our clients' current situation and their futures, and how we bring those things together and how we relate to one another in the midst of all of that that's going on.
Yeah. Well, another dimension that I actually want to ask you, which I think one-on-one connects, is that we hear a lot nowadays about present, and I don't mean a gift, I mean just the time fragment. And personally, the longer I am thinking about it, reading about other mindsets, I come to this preliminary conclusion that it is focusing on something that maybe doesn't even exist. Well, it exists, but it's always gone. And so that's from a physical perspective. It's always gone. From a language perspective, it's always described in what I understand from yesterday. And from an imagination perspective, it's always something that's not yet here. So in a way, I feel that we are focusing on something that's actually nothing. So what if I replace the word being present by being in the moment? What thought would trigger that for you, your clients, your personal development, by being in the moment?
It's funny, just as you're describing that now, and what picture that comes to mind for me is a river or a stream. And I just had this picture in mind of sitting beside a stream, and that whole, and the waters come from somewhere. It's flowing past me now where I'm sitting, and then it's flowing on further downstream. And that whole thing about about living in the present, to me, what I saw in my mind's eye was like trying to grasp the water as it flows by. Like trying to grab it. And as soon as you try to grab that water, it just seeps through your fingers. You can't hold on to the water. But living in the moment would be sitting back and almost yet appreciating that river, where it's come from, appreciating as it flows by me now, and appreciating the future, where it's headed downstream. It's kind of having all of those an awareness of all of those parts of the river in this current moment that I find myself in. And that river's, it's not that it started flowing this morning, it's going to finish at 5 o'clock today. Like it's been flowing from who knows how long, and it will continue to flow for who knows how long. It's sort of this sort of almost like a boundless time. And here I am, I find myself in a moment beside this river, with this river, beside this client, with this client, with a whole history behind it, a whole future ahead, and how do I then almost like participate in this moment without trying to grasp the present, which is always, like you say, always gone. It's always just running through my fingers. I don't know. That's what came into my head just as you were talking.
Yeah, well, it's the maximizer in me. I immediately want to upgrade your picture.
Great.
I was
I can
just
put a little water wheel in there and harness it up.
You get some energy out of it. No. I was just thinking, like, from the perspective of the water, the future is downstream. But the perspective from you being in the moment, the future is actually upstream because it's not yet in your view. And it gives a great metaphor for what we tend to do. We tend to lean forward and put our head upstream to see what's coming. Inside, if we need to get in the middle of the river or stay where we are, to actually receive that opportunity. I think that's a great metaphor for the emerging future, because we tend to say we are preparing for tomorrow because tomorrow is coming if we are prepared or not. Like the future is coming to us. We are not going there. In a way, we are on the treadmill and life just goes under us. And that but then in the moment with your client, for me, it becomes not just awareness, but it becomes motion, dynamic. And last time we talked about righteousness and doing the right thing, and doing the right thing for the right people is actually relational, but it's also a movement, motion. And this one, like when we make the present, it's a snapshot that is like a photo. It's taken in the past. When we are in the moment, it becomes dynamic, it becomes relational. And I introduce you again, like want to make business personal again. So what does that do for you when being in the moment is seen as relational?
Yeah, it comes alive, doesn't it? And it's, to me, it's this connection with the person that I'm with. It's this relationship that I have with this my client who I'm helping, who I'm serving, who I'm hopefully providing great value for them and their business. But it goes beyond that transaction to, okay, we're in a moment here, we're walking together for however long we're working together, but it's almost like this shared journey, at least for a period of time. And I think it's what we're talking about here is keeping in mind this person and their business, where they've come from, more importantly perhaps in the context of self-leadership and from the future, where it is they're going. And so those should be questions, I think, at the forefront of our mind when we're engaging with people. Where are you going? Where do you see yourself going? Like I understand we've got this particular situation or whatever that you're facing that I'm here to help work through, but where are you going? Where do you see your business going? Where do you see yourself going? And how do I bring value from our interaction, but in the context of the future? How do we, like you say, make sure that we work together to position ourselves in this river, ready for what's coming down? Like I love how you reframed that. You're right. The future is what's coming downstream next. And how do we position ourselves now through whatever project situation it is that we're currently engaging? Yeah. How do we use this to position ourselves to leverage a situation for what's coming?
Yeah, thank you. Well, to wrap up, and make it actually actionable and relational for ourselves and for those who listen. That personal development that is leading, it is your preparation. You're leading your client, you learn from it, but the learning moment is prior to that. How do you set yourself up for learning? Do you do that on your own, or how do you do that?
Yeah, I think it's very difficult to do this on your own, and I think it's important to get input from others, and from a variety of sources. But for me, I found discussing these things in the context of a group of people who have got similar ideas or similar desires and trying to head in the same direction, trying to remain future focused and trying to sort of discover that future, which, as you say, is often not clear. And if you feel like you really have solid clarity, then that's probably a good trigger to question yourself. Am I really thinking future, or am I just thinking what I can see next? And so to be surrounded by people who constantly challenge that perception and challenge that you to upgrade your paradigm, I think is important.
Yeah,
really is.
Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, and I think that is for everyone listening. Like, just connect and let Shane or me explain how an inner circle, having no stake in your development, actually can help you both in experiencing to look further ahead, but also being brutally honest. Like, you're just projecting your own past ahead of you, and yes, it sounds all very comfortable and doable, but also very predictable because we've all heard it before. You know? So let yourself be surrounded by peers, and there is a link coming on the bottom of the screen, and it's in the notes of the podcast. There's a link, businessrevivalist.com/guest, for just sit in and discover in a peer mastermind group happening every Friday. So discover this Friday if such a group is beneficial for you to keep you on track, and actually start to write your own song, find your own rhythm in how you lead yourself as you do those that follow, your clients, your household, your business. Not at the expense of personal development, and also not the other way around, but find a rhythm to go after your vision and dealing with day-to-day issues, problems in the moment. So just use the link, sign up, or just direct message one of us through the socials, and we love to take it further from here. Shane, thank you. A lot of
pleasure.
Yes. And I'm looking forward for next time.
Yes.
Like,
what are we going to talk about next?
That is. I will look around the corner.
Absolutely. There's something coming downstream.
Exactly. Thank you very much, my friend.
Thanks, Arjan. It's been a pleasure.